Robert the Bruce is a national hero who secured Scotland's independence. First of all, he had a childhood. It was whatever. March 19th, 1286, King Alexander III, whom you might vaguely recall from the Haakon IV video as a king who existed, is now dead. His only heir is his 3-year-old granddaughter, who was also the daughter of the King of Norway and married to the Crown Prince of England. It was beginning to look like the band was getting back together. Then she died, and now, well, there was no obvious successor, and a lot of people had a claim to the throne. The council who was ruling the kingdom on the Queen's behalf decide in order to prevent civil war, they need a third party to weigh in, someone totally divorced from the situation with no interest in Scottish politics. Like the Pope? I was thinking more like the King of England. Yeah, right. That's like asking, "Excuse me, Herr Hitler, could you help us choose the next Polish president? Excuse me, Monsieur Napoleon, could you help us choose the next King of Spain?" That one actually happened. No, there's no way we... Why, I would be positively delighted to help you pick your king. But first, I need you to recognize me as the feudal overlord of your new king. On what legal grounds? On the grounds that you don't have any grounds that I'm not the supreme overlord of Scotland. Should have gone with the Pope. Well, you know, we all feel that you would make a great overlord, but without a king to speak for us, I just don't think any of us have the kind of authority to make it official. Oh, very well. Bring in the contestants. Oh, we're going to be here all day. Couldn't you at least narrow it down first? Who's this one? The name's Lord Schmo, first name Joe. I'm a lord. Never seen this man before in my life. Wait, what's that yellow bar? Well, you see, I'm 1/8 Scottish on my dad's side, and he can trace his roots all the way back to Macbeth. I think he's an American. I wanted to throw my hat in the ring, so my girlfriend made it official and bought me a plot of land in the Scottish wilderness, which according to tradition means I am officially a lord. Is this a real thing? Real thing! Look, I even got it printed on my credit card. It was a birthday present from Established Titles. Oh my god, I think we're in an ad! They even sent me a framed certificate with my unique plot number so I can find the exact location of my realm. Isn't she beautiful? And every purchase not only makes you a lord or a lady, but also plants a tree. So I think that makes me your most caring option to be your king. What is that? No, I'm the king! I'm the king! I'm gonna be king! So's my wife! Where are they all coming from? Oh yeah, and I may have told some of my friends that if they follow the link in the description, they can get 10% off. Is that a cat? Isn't my little Lord Schnufkin adorable? Alright, everyone who isn't from the 13th century, out! Out! Oh! What? Except the cat. He stays. Okay, you, and you. Names and elevator pitches, go. My name is John Balliol. I'm the senior-most man in the family by primogeniture. My name is Robert the Bruce, but everyone calls me Grandpa Bruce because the famous one is my grandson. Get on with it. I'm a generation above him, so I'm closer related to Margaret. Next. I'm John Hastings. I think we should divide Scotland into pieces proportional to... Absolutely not. Balliol gets the kingdom. Big surprise, Edward treats Balliol like his vassal, makes him pay tribute, decides legal matters for him, and then the last straw finally came when he ordered the Scottish to be drafted in a war against the French. Balliol refused and entered into an alliance with France instead because he realized both of their nations were built on the same uncompromising cornerstone of hating the English. Edward invades Scotland in response, sweeps in, captures John Balliol, puts an Englishman in charge of the whole operation, but the Scots won't stand for it. This is the part where William Wallace was making a name for himself as Guardian of Scotland and a hotshot military commander, and now we can finally talk about Robert the Bruce. He and his dad, Papa Bruce, had pledged their unwavering loyalty to England. And then, on the road to go campaign against the rebels, Rob changed his mind and pledged his unwavering loyalty to Scotland. Well, Wallace loses a big battle because the English have better bows. He resigns from leadership in 1298, and Robbie takes the reins. But he does so alongside a man named John Cummin. And Robert the Bruce remembers John Cummin. The first time they'd met was when the Bruces were still loyal to England, and the Cummins attacked their ancestral home. Hello, Bruce. How's it going, Bruce? Not bad. How's yourself, Bruce? Long time no see, Bruce. Whoa, lordy! You couldn't make either one of them guardian without upsetting the other, so you needed 2 guardians. But they hated each other so much they wouldn't agree on anything, so you needed a neutral 3rd guardian. Like the King of England. Oh! Like the Pope. I could settle for clergy. But then, in 1302, Bruce switches sides again. Partly because it looked like Edward was about to win the war anyway, partly just to make life difficult for the Cummins. They wanted to get John Balliol back on the throne since he got out of prison, but lest we forget, Grandpa Bruce, and by extension Papa Bruce, and by extension Robert the Bruce, still had his own claim. And a few years later, Edward does win, and everyone in Scotland submits to him, except for William Wallace, but he doesn't matter anymore. But Bruce appears to be biding his time until King Edward kicks the bucket, at which point, he'll be ready to begin a new rebellion with himself as the King of Scotland. He even made a deal with John Cummin, saying that if Cummin would give up his personal claim to the throne, that he could have all of the Bruce's lands when Rob became king. And Cummin immediately tells on him to King Edward. Old Bobby Bruce escapes England, but it looks like it's now or never on that whole rebellion thing. But first he stops by a chapel and murders John Cummin. He was now on Edward's bad side, half of Scotland wanted him dead, and even the Pope got involved to excommunicate him. So why not name yourself king and go for broke? His attempts to meet the English in open battle were not successful. He stopped outside a town named Perth and asked the army holed up inside if they would politely come out and have a fight, but they told him, "Oh, it's a bit late, you know, sun's nearly down. We were gonna curl up and watch Numberwang on the telly before bed. Can we do it tomorrow?" "Right, okay, well, I'll be out here if you need me." And the English came out in the middle of the night, ran through his camp, and killed a bunch of people. His family was captured a few months later, and he spent that winter hiding on a cold and rocky isle. But before he could die in obscurity, the spring came. He managed one good battle against the English, and then King Eddie Longshanks dies and is replaced by Edward II, who has to attend to securing his own power in England. Robert takes the time to crush the Cummins, and he figures out one simple trick to recapture the South, and you'd better believe the English hated him for it. You see, the English had a tendency to win in open battles, what with their improved technology and larger population, and not having their kingdom in a prolonged state of turmoil in the absence of a clear leader. But every winter, they leave just a few men in all the castles they've taken, and the rest of the army goes back home, because it's a bit chilly, innit? So, Bob refuses to fight them in open combat. He and his men take to the hills, wage guerrilla warfare, and then come out in the winter and start capturing English-held castles. By 1314, there was just one important stronghold left to take: Stirling Castle. The Scottish lay siege. The defenders give Bruce a timeline for their surrender, said if no one shows up by the 24th, they're game to let the Scottish in. Edward II sends a large relief force to break the siege in time, and he finds a force of Scottish pikemen blocking the road. Before they come to blows, an English knight challenges the Bruce, Bobby B, if you will, to single combat. Brucey splits his head open with an axe. The English cavalry commander sees his nephew breaking Bruce's favorite axe with his skull and charges forward in anger, when suddenly his men start disappearing, tumbling into spiked pits. Bruce just turned the Scottish lowlands into Vietnam. The Scottish pikemen push back the English, but now they're in an open field. What, are they suicidal? Your Majesty, they may know something we don't. Perhaps we should postpone our engagement. Ooh, I don't want to fight the scary Scots. They've got pointed sticks. Oh! All right, we do it your way. Charge! The Earl of Gloucester and his men ran straight into the Scots and their pointed sticks. The Scots continue moving forward, pressing the English against the river. Aha! That formation is only good for defense. They can't march like that. Charge! And the English impaled themselves on a bunch of spears for a third time. With no more space between the Scots and the river, the English began to break rank and scatter. King Edward was desperately escorted away from the battlefield, and then his escort, resolved not to be a coward, ran back into the battle, got surrounded, and stabbed to death by a bunch of spears. The king tried hiding in Stirling Castle, but no good, Your Majesty. We are set to surrender in about 5 hours. Eventually, he made it to the coast and sailed back to England. From this point forth, the tide had been turned, and it was the Scottish who were invading England for the next 14 years, until Edward II was deposed by his wife and replaced by Edward III. In May 1328, Edward III renounced all claims to Scotland, and in October, the Pope called to let Robert know he was recommunicated, and that killing a guy inside a church was all water under the bridge. Perfect timing, because he ended up getting his last rites in 1329, after getting pretty much all he wanted out of life. Good on ya, lad.